Hey, it's John from Tinderbox Arts. So today I'm going to do a quick little video on how to patch a leak in your tire if you get a nail or a screw or a stone or something like that that's causing a leak. And we're just going to go over the whole process here. I'm going to demonstrate it for you, and you'll have an idea of how to do this on the roadside in an emergency if you need to. As a general rule, if you get a nail or a screw or something like that in the middle third of the tire tread, then it's okay to patch it. You can even go a little bit more sometimes if it's a small screw or nail, or depending on how it entered and what the tire is like, you can go a little bit more, but certainly in the middle third you have no problem. However, you never want to try to patch a sidewall. So I've seen where nails go in here and come out a sidewall. That's no good. You can't patch that, or you shouldn't patch that. But if it's in the middle third or in that general vicinity, then you're okay. I also want to mention there's more than one type of patch. So I'm going to be talking about a specific type of patch called a rope, or sometimes laughingly called a dog turd. I'll show you in a second. And that particular type of patch can be applied from the outside of the tire. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. There are other types of patches, like a mushroom patch, which is applied from the inside of the tire. They work very well, but it can't typically be done on the roadside. All right, here's the kit that I bring with me if I'm going on a longer trip or on my touring bike, so that I have a way to patch tires or plug them if I need to. First thing you'll need, needle nose pliers, because you have to have some way of getting the nail or the screw or the stone, whatever it is, out of the tire. So that's step number one. There's a couple tools that go with this kit. One is a reamer, which I'll show you how to use in a second. And this tool, I actually don't know if it has a name, but this is what's used to actually apply the plug or the patch, and we'll show you how to work that. The plugs themselves, they're kind of called rope plugs, rope style, and as a joke, sometimes people call them dog turds because they kind of look like that. We'll need those, and we'll need some rubber cement, which helps consolidate everything and hold air better than if you didn't use that, so you're going to need that as well. There's some zip ties here, which are just coincidental. They're just easy to carry in there. And finally, the last thing you'll need is an inflator of some sort, either an electric inflator like this, which is battery powered off the bike, or some people use CO2 cartridges, which is also fine, but for me, I just like this because it gives me the most flexibility. Now, on the roadside, you notice your tire air is getting low. You're getting squirrely in your performance there, and you look back in there and you find a nail or a screw or whatever in there. So first step is we got to get that out. So once you've located the nail or a screw, in this case it's a nail, it's good if you put it up on the center stand if you have one, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world. But expect when you pull this thing out, you're going to lose all the air in the tire probably. But usually it's just a matter of digging and around. Sometimes it's nice to have a screwdriver, but in this case I'm going to assume I don't. If you can get a hold of the head and twist it, usually slowly. I mean, don't try to, yank it out quickly. Just be careful about it. And this one is coming. And we're almost there. And then you can hear the air is coming out here. So I'm going to lose all the air, but that's expected. All right, the first tool we're going to use is the reamer. And basically it's just like a round file. Some of them look a little different, but the point of this is just to clean out that hole that we just found, make it as clean as possible, and enlarging it a little bit. So this size of this reamer is the correct size that we need, so when we put those plugs in, we know we have the right size hole. Now I have this up on the center stand right now, but I did put it in gear just to hold the tire a little bit, because it can get a little violent here. But basically I'm just going to insert this reamer as deep as I can in that hole, and I might have to work at this a little bit. I'm twisting it. I want to make sure I get all the way in there, and then clean out that hole as best you can. You're going to lose a little bit of rubber here, but that's normal. You want that hole to be the right size and to be nice and clean. Alright, then I withdraw it. There's my hole. I'm in good shape. So that's the reamer. Alright, now that we've reamed it out, we got to use this tool here, which I don't really have a name for. Probably someone can tell me what the hell it's called. But anyway, this tool has a special, let me just get one of these plugs out. This tool has a special feature to it. Let me get something to point with here. So the tool has an open area right here. That's just a piece of fuzz. An open area right here in the middle. and then it has a slot in the end, all right? And so what we're going to do is put that dog turd or that plug in the middle here through that area. This back area right here, when I push that plug into the tire, this back area right here will prevent the plug from going, past the tool. And then I'm going to quickly withdraw the tool, and then the plug will come through that slotted area right here, all right? So to do this, we're just going to take the plug, or the dog turd, whatever you want to call it, insert it here. Sometimes it's tough to get started. All right, and then we're just going to pull that through. This is gooey. And what we want is the dog turd or the plug to be about halfway, between the ends there. All right, so what's going to happen is I'm going to push this thing in. It's going to go like this when I push it into the tire. And I want to push it so that only about a ½ inch of this plug is actually showing outside of the tire. Most of this stuff is going to be inside the tire. But I'm going to force the tool in like that. And then when I withdraw, what's going to happen is the plug is going to escape through this slotted area right here in the front. And I'm going to withdraw quickly. I don't want to, pull it out slowly. I want to give it a good yank, a quick yank. But before we do that, we want to cover this thing in that rubber cement I showed you. That will soften this plug up and allow it to seal better. All right, so I'm going to take the rubber cement and really goo it on there. Really saturate this plug. And I'm going to let that sit for a minute. Just give it 30 seconds or a minute, and then we'll insert this. All right, let that sit for about 30 seconds. Now here's the hole right here, and it takes some effort to push this in, which is fine. Now I'll show you another style of tool in a minute, which is a little easier if you want to. All right. So that's about right. I got about a ½ inch showing. And now I'm going to give it a good yank out quick. And that's good. So the plug came out that slotted area. See, I already got the goo all over me. Came out that slotted area. And now the plug remains in there. Let me give you a close-up. All right, here you can see close-up. This was the tool, by the way. There's a close-up of the tool. But you can see I only have, whatever, a ½ inch or 3/4 of an inch sticking out of the plug. The rest remains in there. Now I'm just going to let this set up. I mean, it's going to get all gooey. That's normal. And then in about a minute or two, I'm going to take that pump and pump up the air. Now, if you're using a little tiny tire inflator, sometimes it's tough to get a lot of pressure out of it, but get as much as you can. So at least 40 psi. Sometimes these pumps kind of top out around there, but if you can get more, 50 or 60, great, go ahead and do it. And if you're doing this at home in a garage, go ahead and get like 60 psi. That'll force this plug out as much as it'll go, and just leave that for a little bit. And this rubber cement will set up. The gooiness will kind of harden a little bit. And at that point, if you're in a shop or something, you have access to a razor blade or something like that, you can cut off this excess if you want. But if you're out on the road, you're not going to have that, and it's not a big deal. You can ride right over this. Obviously, you want to be careful, but it will wear off, and it won't be a problem. And so we're going to pump this tire up now and see how our patch holds. All right, with the pressure pumped up, it looks like I'm in good shape. I don't feel any air coming out. I don't see any bubbles with the rubber cement, so I'm in good shape. I'm in a shop, so I am going to just cut this off. And you can just take a razor blade and carefully trim it. You could just ride on that if you needed to. If you're in a shop, go ahead and wipe that off. You can actually use a little bit of acetone or alcohol or something just to kind of get the gooiness off. But you can definitely ride on this. It won't hurt anything. Now, obviously, if you're out on the road, you've made the patch, you don't feel any air coming out, you feel you're in good shape, but you're not 100% sure. For the first, 10 miles, ride carefully, don't be an idiot. But if you're going to get 10 miles out of it, or if you want to wait a ½ an hour and it's still holding air, then you're probably good to go. Now, what if you've done something wrong? The patch fails. That is possible. So if you can't get that plug in there deep enough and you pull out and the whole plug comes out, or you do the plug and it's still leaking a little bit, you can redo this a second time. It's not the end of the world. You can also sometimes add a second plug in there if it absolutely is necessary. Now, is that ideal? No, but it can be done. Now, after riding a few miles, on that patch, it's going to look something like this, and you know, most of it's gone, but this will wear right off, and it's really not a danger as far as riding. Now, I know there's some other questions that are going to come up. Now, this is an old tire that I'm working on right here. It was due for replacement anyway, so it's not a big deal. So this is going to get trashed. The other question, though, I'm going to get asked, though, is what if you have a brand new tire or a newer tire and you put a plug in it? Is this something you can rely on long term? Well, maybe. You know, some people feel very strongly that once a motorcycle tire gets a hole in it, you need to replace it. And if that's the way you feel, fine. You know, I'm not going to argue with you. These patches can last, though, the life of the tire, depending on how well they're done originally. So if you have a good patch, let's say you've done the patch on the road, you get home, and you know, over the next couple nights it doesn't lose any air, you go for a couple rides, it seems good, then you're probably fine. It's probably going to last the life of the tire. But there are other options. So you could get home, so now you've gotten home on the emergency, you could take this patch out and replace it with a mushroom style, which is inserted from the inside, and that's definitely a good patch, and that will last the life of the tire as well. So you know, that's an option for you. Or if you feel strongly about it, or you're just nervous about it, then go ahead and replace the tire. But these patches do have a history of lasting a long time. I have a work truck, which is, you know, it's a dually work truck, and I have a couple of these patches in it because I do construction and there's all sorts of nails around. So those patches, I have a couple that have lasted 30,000 miles, and those tires are under, you know, 70 psi, and they get quite a load on them. So there's nothing wrong with these patches inherently, but you know, because it is a motorcycle, and if you feel strongly about it, then go ahead and replace the tire. For me personally, if I feel it's a good patch and I see the air is holding, and I've done a little bit of riding on it, then I feel comfortable with it, then I'll go ahead and use it for the life of the tire. Now, one other thing I want to mention, you saw me using this tool here, and it has a straight handle. And the reason I use this one is because it doesn't take up much space, and I can keep it in that little kit and, you know, keep it on my motorcycle, and it doesn't take much space. But if I have the choice, this is a better tool. It's the same on the business end, but it has a pistol grip handle, and there's a reamer that also has a pistol grip handle. And you saw me struggling with this one a little bit, and that's largely because that handle is not easy to put a lot of pressure on. The pistol grip is much easier. I can do it in half the time. So if you have room, or if you're in the shop, then try to get this style just because it's a lot easier to work with. But that's how you patch a tire. You know, if you're on the emergency on the roadside, this is the way to go. So keep this on your kit there if you're going on a longer trip, and it's something I keep in my shop as well.